Hey friends, and welcome to another episode of Taco King Art. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate the support. In today's episode, I'm going to be creating a comic spread, and we're going to be using characters that I established in previous videos. So in episode 1, I introduced the character of Darren, otherwise known as Taco King. And in episode 2, I introduced the character of Paz. So the challenge is combining those two characters to tell a short story. And as short as the story is going to be, it should still have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's get to it. Alright, so now we're over at the drawing table, and I put a file together of all the concepts for this comic page, which I call Toast. So now I just want to take you through some of that conceptual art. So this is the initial rough, and it's supposed to be bad. It's not supposed to look good. The purpose of this rough is to really quickly get my idea down on paper. I'm not concerned with drawing, not that concerned with layout, but I am more concerned with telling a decent story and just getting the general concept of the comic page. So for this page, I'm using a standard comic book spread, and I get this template from a company called Mix'em, and they're a printing company. So they have a really nice PDF that you could download on their website, and this template, which is like the yellow and the blue, it tells you exactly how to set up your comic pages. This yellow is called the quiet area, and that's defined as the area that you should not put any text in, so you kind of keep it empty. You can have imagery in it, but you shouldn't put anything important in it, because it's essentially the margin of the page. And then this blue area is called the bleed, and what you want to do is you want to draw to the edge of the bleed, because it's going to get cut on that black dashed line. So so you need like a little bit of extra image here in case the cutting machine doesn't cut right on that line. And then this red dashed line is for the fold, and essentially this is a standard comic book spread, so it would fold over like this, and there would be maybe some artwork on this side and artwork on that side, but essentially that's the page. So let me go over the concept for this comic strip. I named it Breakfast Time. That was the kind of like working title. And the two characters in this are Paz and Taco King. So as we start off, Paz is sleeping in a bed, and all of a sudden she smells an aroma in the air, and she kind of follows that aroma to a coffee machine. And she's kind of like in this like dream-like state. Her eyes are still closed, but she smells this thing and it's intriguing to her, and she wants to know what it is. And it's Taco King in the kitchen, and he's making coffee, and he's going to put toast in the toaster. And then in this scene right here, Paz is like at the edge of the room. All we see is her snout peeking into the room, and she's still following that aroma, and Taco King is here sipping a cup of coffee, but he's not really paying attention. He doesn't expect Paz to be there, and he's waiting for his toast to come out of the toaster. And then in this scene, Taco King is holding his cup of coffee, and we can see that the aroma of the coffee and the aroma of the toast is circulating through the room and intriguing Paz, and Paz inches her way into the kitchen and gets closer to the table, and Taco King is kind of like just distracted by the content on his phone, so he's like swiping through his phone, and he's not really paying attention. He doesn't realize that Paz is there. So, and then in this scene, in this frame, Paz takes this opportunity when the toast is ready. The toast pops up out of the toaster, and Paz jumps up, which scares Taco King, and the coffee goes flying in the air. And then we go to this scene right here where Paz escapes out of the room because she knows she did something she wasn't supposed to do, and Taco King is upset because now he doesn't have coffee and he has a broken cell phone because he's dropped it on the floor. And that's where it ends right here. So really all I need to know in this one is kind of like the storyline. And then from this page, I go on to drawing a little bit more refined sketches. Here's some of the drawings for that one. And I use marker paper for this, just because marker paper is very thin and it's easy to erase. It comes off pretty clean and it's cheap. So here's some renditions of Paz. I didn't know exactly what I was doing with this, whether she's flying, but it was just me kind of starting iterations. Here's Paz kind of waking up, but she's still in the bed and her eyes are closed. In this one, I have some rendition of kind of, it looks like water, but I thought, what if she was like in this like coffee dream, or coffee, maybe she's like swimming through a coffee pot or something like that. And these are kind of like renditions of aroma, or like smoke or aroma from the toaster or the coffee machine. Down here is a rendition of Taco King putting toast in the toaster. And then I got more of that, and here's Taco King taking a sip of coffee and holding his phone. And then here's Taco King with his cup of coffee, and this is where Paz is like inching into the room and he's distracted by the content of his cell phone. And then in this one, this is when he's angry. And then here's like his thought bubble of what he's going to, of the punchline, of what he's going to say. And then in this one I have versions of when he becomes surprised. And at this point I didn't really know what I was going to go with, but this is kind of like just renditions of surprise. And then from there I kind of like take pictures of those and I drop them in. This was kind of like an early iteration of me dropping in these images into Procreate, and then I just constantly like resize them and move them around the page and trying to just get a good overall story and composition going. So it's kind of like a messy process, because I keep going from drawing to Procreate, back to drawing, back to Procreate, and I keep going back and forth like that until I come up with something closer to this, but this is not final. At this point I had no idea what the colors were going to be, but I did know that at this point that I wanted to give it like a softer feel, so I did rounded corners on all the frames. I knew exactly where the margins were going to be for the page. I knew pretty much what the frames were going to be, and what I wanted to happen in each frame, and I did know what the copy was going to be. This is like a thought bubble, and so I you know, from there I was pretty happy with what I planned to do with it, so I went for the final version, and this is kind of the final version. So in this one, you know, Paz is kind of like swimming through a pot of coffee. So she is kind of like in a dreamy haze, like a coffee dream, and she's following that aroma, not really in reality, because who is in, you know, reality when they're dreaming? And Taco King is making that toast. Here she is at the edge of the frame. She's back in reality now, and she kind of understands, okay, she's awake, and Taco King is doing something that is garnering her interest, and she wants to know what it is, and she can see that he's making coffee and toast. She's plotting to steal that toast, and Taco King here is distracted by his phone, and this is where, you know, the toast pops up, and she grabs it. He throws the cell phone, throws the coffee. She runs out of the room, darts out of the room, leaves like just like a puff of smoke, like in the old cartoons. and he has the thought, why didn't I see that coming? And that's the end, or I put end, because I think that when I put this book together, I'm going to have numerous little short stories, which is going to make the 32-page comic. And so this would fold over like this, and we'll have a comic here, maybe a comic on this side, and that's it. This is just like a rough printout. It's a good idea to print out the artwork to kind of see how it's coming along. So it's not a really good quality printout, but it's enough so I can see the colors and judge how the actual print is going to work out. Alright, so now we're in a time-lapse replay of the coloring process within Procreate, which is not much of a process because I don't really have a solid process in place. A lot of this was just experimentation, like in the dark experimentation, just me trying different approaches. I can tell you that, like, outside of this immediate comic page, I had set up other pages just to play with brushes and test out a lot of different brushes before kind of deciding on this set of brushes here, which really I'm only using 2 main brushes for the background colors, and then 1 main brush for the inking, and then 1 brush for the text bubble. So it's not a huge amount of brushes, but they do have like a good, like the inking brush has a good variance to it, because you can get like really fine lines or you can get really thick lines just based on the amount of pressure that you put on the Apple Pencil. So you could ink the whole thing with 1 brush, which was kind of the point. I didn't want to be using like a million different brushes to ink the whole thing. And in the beginning of this like time-lapse video, I could talk a little bit about like the color process. I was using just like the default Procreate kind of like fill method, where you take a color swatch and you drop it onto a closed piece of artwork, and it fills the area for you. And I really just didn't like how that was coming out. I think it looked like the color was too flat and it was too strong, and it was not it looked like it was rendered in Adobe Illustrator or something like that, and so I really wasn't liking that. And I wanted to have more of a, almost like a traditional, like it was done in traditional media. So that's why I kept experimenting with the brushes, and I ended up with these brushes that mimic Copic markers, and I was really happy with the texture that came out of these brushes. So I wasn't looking for like a super perfect, like refined look. Didn't want it to look like it was done in Adobe Illustrator. Wanted it to have texture, wanted it to have some kind of like emotional appeal through the texture. And then I guess I could talk a little bit about how did I choose this color palette. And so before I choose colors, I guess I choose a set of words to convey a feeling. You know, what is the feeling that I'm trying to convey in this comic page, and then you distill that down to a few keywords, and from those keywords you pick that color palette. So in this instance, I was going for like, I wanted it to be fun, I wanted it to be warm and energetic and inviting, and just based off those words, you know, you have to think, well, what colors convey that kind of energy? And so from there, then usually, like, I'll scour the internet, I will find an image that I feel kind of like represents that same feeling, and then I will eyedrop or grab color from that image, and that becomes my color palette. And I think it's also important to distill down the palette to a handful of colors so it doesn't feel like overwhelming, and you can kind of capture emotion better that way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.